Wow, Carl. I hate everyone except for you. Good morning, sir.
It's a lot of pressure to put on one person.
Right? Isn't it? I've had like a cup this big of Carnation Instant Bitch this morning, and I am really...
I don't blame you.
Okay, can we give me 14? So here's the guy, the cop, right, at the press conference yesterday.
Mm-hmm. We were able to interview him with the Atlanta Police Department and FBI. He made indicators that he has some issues, potentially sexual addiction, and may have frequented some of these places in the past.
Okay, and went on to say,
the investigators, they interviewed him this morning, and they got that impression that, yes, he understood the gravity of it, and he was pretty much fed up and kind of at the end of his rope, and yesterday was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did.
Yeah, I don't recall a lot of black suspects, them ever mentioning what sort of day they were having and what
of
they
course
were
not.
was maybe, giving them a sad on that particular day. I mean, Carl, what do you say about, they're saying, at this point, we don't think it's racially motivated. When do we on day one go with what the murderer says, right?
You do when it's a white suspect, apparently.
Yeah.
At a certain point, we have to either stop accepting this, right? It means we have to reform the way we do policing in this country and who we have do policing in this country. You can only take so many isolated examples like this before you accept the fact that this is a pandemic in this country. And it's been that way for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And that's not, in that conversation, there's also the conversation around gun violence in this country that we've not focused on for a while now because it's happened less because people have been at home.
Right, because of COVID. Exactly right, Carl.
Right.
That's the, bad news about, us doing better with COVID is here we go with shootings again, and probably including school shootings when school is back.
And, we're not going to handle these problems until we handle these problems. We've spent the last 15 years talking about these things and never doing anything.
Yeah.
At best, we do nothing. At worst, we elect people like Donald Trump who inflame these feelings, who provoke people, who incite people.
Carl,
it has to stop.
What are the statistics? 3,800 incidents were reported over the course of roughly a year during the pandemic, and of course, a disproportionate number of attacks were directed at women. 70% at Asian women, 30% at Asian men, roughly. But that's 150% increase.
You've had people who have been cut in the face with box cutters, pushed down and
killed,
suffered, brain hemorrhages. You've had all sorts of things happen in the midst of a president, the moral leader of a country, talking about the so-called China virus.
He said it 2 nights ago on Fox.
This is the result.
He said it 2 nights ago on Fox again, Carl. 2 nights ago. I mean, it's... Yeah, Joy Reid said, this man got in his car and he went to these locations to target Asian women. I think it is irresponsible for law enforcement to put into the public consumption the idea that the guy had a sex addiction and had a bad day. Asian women on Twitter, Mingha Pham, said he didn't have a sexual addiction. He had racist, sexualized fantasies about dominating Asian women. In other words, he had fantasies of white supremacy and acted on them, name it. Yeah, I mean, that's part of it before you can... get to the solutions, but okay. So he was on his way to Florida. I'm just trying to, obviously this could have been way worse. Thank God they caught him when they did. But this, John Fugelsang said, stop describing him as religious. One person who went to school with him said he was super nice, super Christian, very quiet. In high school, he brought a Bible to school with him every day and would walk around with it. I mean, there's just a larger discussion to be had about all this, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this hate gets wrapped up in so-called religion. It's used as a weapon, and it's been like that for a long, long time. And our government seems to accept it when they don't act to change things. When we put people like Donald Trump or his enablers, which are plenty in Congress, I get a lot of spam from Republicans for some reason.
Me too.
And
because they're idiots.
Donnie Jr. sent me a fundraising email last night on behalf of Kevin McCarthy. So if you were wondering why Kevin McCarthy did an about face and no longer wants to hold Donald Trump or anybody in his family accountable for these types of actions, there you go. It's sad. And, we need to center the voices of the people who are being hurt here. It's been good to see members of Congress of AAPI descent sharing their stories. We have one congresswoman who shared racist voicemails that she's been getting over the years. It's about time we had this conversation again.
Mina Harris, Kamala's sister, said this is an act of misogynistic terrorism, and it is a crisis in this country. And that is something that Malcolm Nance talked about yesterday, Karl. And that's one thing, whether it's the Capitol rioters straight line to the Atlanta shootings, in every single part, Oath Keepers, probably all of that, misogyny is a part of it. It is a part of white supremacy, right? And it is a conversation we have to have.
It's the it's the Proud Boys, it's the Oath Keepers, it's the 3%ers. They all have a few things in common: misogyny, white supremacy, and an affection for autocrats, who identify with them politically. And so we either have that conversation or we get to repeat this over and over again.
Yeah.
And the conversation needs to end in action.
Yep. Joy Reid said, again, so we're learning daily the ugly consequences of having had a white supremacist administration, even for just 4 years. There is more fear, more hate, more danger, more terrorism. None of that is coincidental. Because we'll hear the right wing, of course, go, there you go, blaming Donald Trump again for everything. It's like, well,
yes.
Who's had the biggest bully pulpit and the biggest megaphone and has been saying China virus right up until 2 days ago? Right. And I'm sure still will. Anman on Twitter said, now do you understand why calling it the China virus can fuel real life and death consequences for Asians and Asian Americans? Karl, you were talking about these horrible videos of people getting shoved down. A lot of them die because they're elderly. Right. They're shoved so hard. And it's just, it really is. I feel like it's it's like the wheel of racism, Karl. You know what I mean? We've watched in Charleston, the church and against black people, we're like, oh, here we are on the pie wheel of racism with Asians now because of coronavirus and Donald Trump thinking, Kung flu is hilarious, right?
It reminds me of, the first they came for.
Yes. I just was thinking that yesterday. Yes. No, go ahead, say it.
And it's true. And who's next if we don't stand up now?
Right. No, it's like, you're right. The guns, hatred, Pulse nightclub, right? I just said nothing because I wasn't gay. Charleston, I said nothing because I wasn't black. Here we are. Right?
An arrest of a white dude in front of the vice president's residence. Don't forget the vice president is our first Asian, first vice president with Asian descent.
Oh, so, all of us. We're elated and nervous, Karl. You're like, are you kidding? The first woman, first African-American, first Asian. She's a walking target for these lunatics. And it just, anyway, the whole thing is, it's terrifying. And, and here we go, full circle back to the other reason I hate everyone this morning is just in terms of, when you think of how many people are dead because of Donald Trump, right? That's why I'm wearing my Hillary shirt. Because I'm with Amy Siskind, who said, who else was thinking if Russia had failed in 2016 like they did in 2020, we could have had Hillary and avoided the disastrous 4 years. # I'm still with her. It's just, Karl, not just Lancet saying 40% of our deaths were preventable, were it not for Trump and the Trump administration's disastrous response. But even now, the vaccine hesitancy and all that, you can lay it right at Trump's doorstep. Right? It
didn't have to be like this.
Right.
It did not have to be like this. He did not care about people.
Right.
And that's the most important aspect of being president, is to actually care about the people you're serving.
Right.
It should inform your work every day. But he didn't care enough to put in proper testing procedures and make sure that those tests were being turned around in time to have meaning.
Right.
And he didn't care. Sure, do warp speed so you can get credit for a vaccine being made, but don't follow through on an ability for people to get the vaccine. He had no idea what he was doing other than the fact that he was serving himself. That's all he cared about.
Yeah. But this is, and also because it's in my backyard and I'm dying to get vaccinated. But Seamus on Twitter said, I just got the Moderna. There were over 150 no-shows to an LA City employee clinic, and they needed to use the vaccine instead of throwing it away. That's how, Travis, same way you got it. The misinformation is tragedy. There's no danger. Get your vaccine, please. Stop this virus. It will mutate and get worse. Thank you. Right? I mean, it's just, and then there's other stories of, people saying that where they were, it went bad because so many people didn't show up. So we're already at the point of wasting vaccine in some places, right?
But I have many friends who have been vaccinated because they waited around all day hoping that there'd be leftovers at the end of the day. And that means that somebody didn't show up for their vaccine. So we're going to have a reckoning in May when we have enough vaccines for every American adult. We're going to have to really work on targeting communities for two things. One, you've got people who have a historical relationship with the medical community that is not good. And so they don't necessarily trust medical doctors the way that others do. And then you've got other people in the community who've been lied to. They've been misled. Yeah. They think Donald Trump's responsible and should get a Nobel Prize for creating the vaccine, but they don't want to take the vaccine because Bill Gates will put a chip in their arm. It doesn't make sense.
Sure.
So we've got to find a way around it.
Travis, you're going to have to get a carrier pigeon to get my show prep to me now, because I'm going to just start waiting in lines all around the city. I'll be out for the remainder of.
It's into your phone. Just read on your little screen.
Okay. Karl, good luck to you. Thank you, sir. You marginally cheered me up, and I think that's the best that can be said today.
I tried.
Good
luck at CVS.
Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you. All right, goodbye. 47 minutes after the hour.